Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken cave.
Hey guys, Weed Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. So, the first thing you ever do when you're going to be using an Act 2 Merc is make sure you get Emilio. They actually have 10% higher base stats, 25% more health, they have 50% innate Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, and Critical Strike. Yeah, they have plus 5 skills into the Zon skill Critical Strike. Dodge, whatever all their ridiculous defensive skills are. I don't even remember the names of them. I only remember Dodge, but there's 3 of them. Anyways, he's got it all. Okay, back to the point of this video. You're going to want Emilio for this build. Why? I'm playing budget DP, but there's a way I want to play this build to where Defiance is going to be very important for me. As you can see, I gave him some shit weapon because I actually didn't have a weapon for my Act 2 Merc. Shaft Stop is actually a really good armor for Mercs. Please use it. It just really helps them not die. Mercs do not gain anything from the stat Vitality. They do not have the stat, but they do get, plus life, PDR, defense, everything else. So it's just a really solid piece of item. Gore Riders are good. String of Ears, pretty good. Not my favorite. Rather would run Dungos, although you could argue it's not that much different because, again, plus Vitality. But you really don't need Life Leech. It's not really going to help your Mercs survive much. It's going to help them survive in situations where they're probably going to survive already, which is like single target. Going over my gear, it's really not important. The key item is a Collins. Now, Vigor is really good. And when you're going to be playing with Succubus Witches, I think Vigor is even more important than normal. Technically, if you run Revives, you don't need to have Vigor. But I actually ran a council member-oriented build with Act 1, and it felt better. I just feel like Summons and Vigor go together. I'm not saying it would be just better than an Act 3 Merc. I tried both. I think they both worked. I mean, Act 3 does do a nice amount of damage. Obviously, later on, the damage from your Mercs is less and less important, but it's kind of like, is Vigor increasing the damage more than an Act 3 Merc would? Probably not, but you get to move faster, and it just feels really good. The reason I switched to having Vigor on myself is I wanted Defiance. And I wanted Defiance because I wanted to run Witches. And Defiance just kind of helps everything about this build function properly. So you're going to go to, I don't even remember the name of this waypoint. Just look at it in the video. Oh my god. And I'm going to get Blood Succubus Witches. And specifically those. You can get the witches that have Amp. If you spawn a map that has the Succubi mod, they will cast Amp. The witches in... what's his name? Worldstone Keep level 2. Also cast Amp. I think Blood Temptresses are the only ones that only cast Blood Curse. Although there might be one more version that also only casts Blood Curse. And the reason Blood Curse is so good is it has an insanely large radius. If you're wondering, their Amp actually has a very big radius too. It might actually be the same size as your Amplify damage, but the fact that you get a free big Amp is really nice. And the Blood Curse, as you can see, it feels like it's 24 yards. It feels like it's a curse from previous seasons, where it basically is bigger than a screen. So the way you want to play this build is you want to always be moving. That time I actually didn't get a curse proc off. You kind of want to help your witches go into melee, and then start to cast curses. And it kind of just is something you get used to, and if anyone's trying it and they're frustrated, I would recommend just trying it for a bit before giving up on them. I actually think there is no argument against running Blood Succubus, Blood Temptresses, whatever the fuck they're called. Sorry. I think there's no argument against running them budget. If you're a budget player of DP, and you're not even going to go into golems, right? Like 1-1 Iron Golem, which technically I have in this character. I just haven't made an Iron Golem. you don't have that many skill points for curses. So obviously you're going to max DP, which actually you could arguably cut points from. I think that is an interesting idea. I should probably try to experiment with it more. This build is not doing that. Obviously, you're going to max Curse Mastery. I think you could argue to go for only 10 Curse Mastery, but it's like you're going to be limiting yourself to a very small set of maps, basically T1 only, maybe T2, until your gear is just ridiculously good. But again, Curse Mastery also busts for your damage, so you would need very, very good gear in-game to skip out on key synergies for Dark Pact. Now, Iron Maiden you can skip out on. You do not need that one. Is Iron Maiden worth using? If you're going to be a full DP player, probably. Now, here's the problem. If you're going 20 point DP, 20 point CM, right? 40. 20 point Decrepify, 60. 20 point Weaken or Iron Maiden, 80. You really can't max 3 curses with full radius. Technically, you can. That would only be 100 points, but you'd have 10 skill points for everything else. If you want to get Bone Armor, that's 2 points. You have to get prerequisites for certain skills, so that's going to be Amplify Damage. It's going to be Life Tap. So now we're at 4 skill points, which say if you want to get Revives, that's 7 skill points. As you can see, it's really tight. Now, technically, you only need 18 skill points to max 3 curses. By the way, I'm going to be doing all the map events in this map. So, like, no fucking complaints, okay? Not anymore. Well, at least not today. Okay, boys? I'm making a video where not only do I do every map event on DP, which is not good at it, I pick up every stupid fucking item, okay? I'm talking flawless gems, okay? I pick it all up for you, so I don't want to hear any complaints. And the reason I did it is I think you could argue this build isn't budget anymore. It does have some pretty good gear. Now, for the way that PD2 is designed, I would argue this build is, if it's not budget, it's pretty early season, mid-season. It's fine if you don't want to call this budget, but, like, people's gear gets really good in PD2, guys. And, like, my Collins isn't even cored. I have some random crap belt on. It's actually pretty sick, but, I mean, it's still a random crap belt. It's got FHR, dual res, and +2 max all res core. The gear really isn't that important on this build. You're just getting 125 FCR. I do have a Black Hand key, but it's a shit one. The circlet is solid. I would agree. The circlet is solid. And the amulet, it's like any 2-skill amulet with FCR. That's nice. Now, technically, you can get one, like, easily, or this wouldn't be worth much. And I have a CTA. Mercure is meh, like shitty Andes, shitty Shaft Stop. Regardless, it would be a build you'd be playing a week into the season, 2 weeks into the season. And at that point, you might still be picking up Flawless Gems. Now, later into the season, is it worth it to pick up Flawless Gems? No. It would be better for you to skip those, maybe pick up Perfects, okay, and just get an item eventually that is worth like 40, 50, 100 Perfect Gems. If you don't understand the concept of time management in PD2, you will never be rich. And there are people who understand that, and that's why they are rich. Now, what's the best way to manage your time in PD2? Trade. Some people don't do that. Trust me, a lot of people don't like to spend all day trading. Some people do, and they are probably the richest people on the server almost every season or close to every season. But there are people who just manage their time well, pick up resources that they know are worth something, and then use their time to trade those resources that are worth something. And they don't spend their time arguing about pieces of shit items, over like a goal rune, right? Wasting your time over a goal rune might cost you more time than if you just gotten something for that item and then turned that into something more valuable, which is like faster clear speeds, the ability to farm higher density maps, etc. So, we've established that. In these videos, where I am pretending to run budget or early mid-game builds, whatever you want to call it, you YouTube retards, I will pick up everything. I might stop picking up Flawless. I'm going to warn you on that, because I kind of got irritated picking up Flawless. I'm just not going to pick up everyone from now on, because it's like going backwards to pick up a Flawless gem is probably not worth your time, except for like day one, all right? See, look, I picked up a map, okay? Are you happy? I don't even like that map. It's actually really shitty. There are magic immunes in it. So, what does this build work for? Works for every single map without magic immunes. Technically, you could run magic immune maps. It's just pretty frustrating. If you're casting curses on enemies that aren't going to take damage from Dark Pact, you're kind of wasting that radius. So again, the way this build, we thought it was going to be dead. I know. Look at all this time I spend dealing with this That's not worth anything, that armor. Okay? But here I am doing this for you. Doesn't this make the video better? I bet there's some guy watching right now going, oh my god, this guy's a professional. He picks up every single unique item, whether it's worth something or not. And I hope you hear this. And I hope you hear me say, fuck you, okay? Because that armor, maybe if it was like the perfect roll with the perfect core, it would have been worth something in week 1 for somebody rushing Rathma. And that's it. Because it has max res, right? So, yeah, you go fuck yourself. Sorry. There was this guy, Brian Carlson, who let's just say he's an absolute legend. Okay. Moving back on how you play this build. You can run maps with magic immunes. Most maps don't have them, but on maps that have magic immunes or high magic res enemies, the issue is your radiuses are pretty small. How Dark Pact functions is you have to cast your curse. If you're running witches, you get basically a free full screen curse like 20 to 24 yards, okay? Then you have to cast 2 of your own curses. If you're trying to get max radiuses, I highly recommend Decrep and Weaken. Those are just very good curses. If you have Decrep and Weaken up, you can run maps with the shittiest mods. I'm talking, I run maps with 40 IAS, and I feel so safe to run ahead of everything, every single time. With Defiance and Decrep and Weaken, I'm never worried. Now, would I do that in like a 60 or an 80 IS map? I'd probably be a little more scared, but like T1, I probably wouldn't care. Probably depends on the other maps in the map. Other monsters in the map, apologies. But you have to make sure all those curses are landing, right? And they all have their radiuses. So if you've got 20, 18, and 18, you're going 3 curse, okay? You never really need 4 curses, okay? Unless you're trying to run T3s with like really, really bad gear, then it would probably help. Because that multiplier is really going to go out of control quickly. Then you need to cast Dark Pact, which only has an 8-yard radius. That sounds really, really bad. The reason it's not really, really bad is because the 8-yard radius procs a Dark Pact explosion, which ranges from 1 to 4 yards on itself. I think there might have been a nerf, which is why I wasn't confident to say that. It might just be 2 to 4 yards now. I'm pretty sure it caps out at 12 yards, and it used to cap out at 13 yards. I apologize if I'm a little off on this. That's because every Dark Pact curse pop creates its own little explosion. So here, I'm going to have a Dark Wanderer, and I'm going to fight this boss while I'm fighting the map boss, and you're going to see that Dark Pact, even with its terrible single target damage, if you're running a build that has a high amount of max res, a nice bone armor. I'm not full energy, okay? My gear is not good enough. I'm like 100 points in the fight, 200 points in the fight, rest into energy. I feel so safe right now. My Merc doesn't die, the Blood Golem obviously dies, and I recast him. But I really want to finish this concept. If you're wasting part of your 8 yards on minions that aren't going to really take damage, it feels really bad. And that's kind of the reason why you really want 125 FCR, is because you fundamentally have to cast at least 3 times the screen, right? Like if you're going to be playing an in-game build, you're going to be casting 1 or 2 curses, Dark Pact, and a warp. That's why this build always has some issues with speed. It's just based on how many casts per screen requires you to clear that screen. This is kind of a similar concept to why tele-stomping every single mob as a summoner doesn't work. Because your tele-stomp is only an effective radius of 10 yards, 8 yards, 12 yards, something around that location, right? Well, an 8 to 12 yard radius is going to take 3 casts per screen, and then 1 cast to move over the screen, right? So again, you can kind of see how a summoner's capping out at speeds near Dark Pact. By the way, I do think optimal summoner should post clear times about as good as an optimal DP, but we'd kind of have to see that once we get all of that set up. As you can see, this boss goes really well, and this felt the best to me out of any budget build I tried. I think the one thing I'd like to do is utilize my skill points a little bit better. I don't think I'd even get lower resist, and I try to get my weaken radius up as high as possible while still having an 18-yard Decrepify. You could argue you want your radiuses to be tied, but having one radius curse a little bit smaller actually does kind of work. And the reason it kind of works is when you're using witches, it's kind of nice when you're moving forward to cast the smaller radius later so that they don't see minions with a curse on them. And they will always cast a curse on curseless enemies, which is why this build works. As you can see, I also do a lot of micro movements. The reason I do that is to avoid issues with quick cast. Because if you cast too quickly with quick cast, it can like force you to cast a spell you don't want. Anyways, I'm gonna make more videos on this because there's really a lot for me to talk about. So for now, Skelly King out. GG.
Come and play with us, Daddy.